At this point, Path of Exile 2 has been out for a little under 2 weeks, so I suspect a lot of people are getting to the end of a honeymoon period. I know that's where I'm at. I've played the game a lot, I've explored the endgame, I have an awesome build, and I also have some frustrations. But when it comes to this video, there's 3 important things to remember. Number 1, this is not a video about how I hate Path of Exile 2. I think the game's really good, I'm liking it a lot, but it's not perfect. And you know what? That's okay, because the second thing to remember is this is the worst state that Path of Exile 2 is going to be in. It just entered early access, aka beta, and GGG has already made several patches that improved the game. And last up, but certainly not least, I'm just a guy saying dumb stuff on the internet. I'm not making this video because I expect GGG to listen to me or change the game because of what I say. If anything, I'm really just making this video for me because there's some stuff that's been bugging me. So, without further ado, let's get into things, starting with number 1, the difficulty difference between the Trial of the Sekimas and the Trial of Chaos, specifically the 3rd and 4th floors for Sekimas versus the 10-round and Trial Master for Chaos. Now, when I first did Trial of the Sekimas, it took me a couple tries. It was a little rough. I was playing a warrior, kinda didn't feel great, but I got through it. When I first did Trial of Chaos, that was actually not on my warrior, but on my Stormweaver. Felt much better, but it still took me a couple tries. First couple felt pretty even in difficulty to me, but maybe that was just because warrior was really weak and Stormweaver was really strong. So when I fought the second trial, it felt even. Then again, maybe I didn't have very many defenses on my Stormweaver, and if you have proper defenses, the Trial of Chaos is even easier. I don't know. Feel free to share some of your experiences down below. If you did both, was the first one harder, second one harder, both about equal? But I also struggled really hard on the 3rd trial. Specifically, because despite being about 10 levels over, my honor was getting destroyed. And it was through that, and through failing a couple times, that I realized, wait a minute, honor resistance is a thing, and this massively reduces the damage you take to your honor. Kind of like how elemental resistance massively reduces the elemental damage you take. But the trial did not do a good job of broadcasting this. Coming into it, maybe this is just because I'm a PoE 1 player, I thought about Forbidden Sanctum, I was like, my relics, they're there for loot. Get relics for better loot. No. You need relics for things like honor resistance, honor recovery, and maximum honor. Defensive stats. This will help you get through a trial much more efficiently. And if you want to know more about that, don't worry, I got you. I have a dedicated video. And so, I got through that. I was feeling pretty good. Leveled up, improved my build, did a 4-round trial. And in the 4-round trial, my honor was going well, I was barely taking honor damage, and then on the 4th floor, I just died to some skeletons. And it sucked. It felt really rough to just die to some skeletons. Sure, enemies in PoE 2 are way more dangerous, but even in tier 15 maps, I never felt like I was in that much danger. Yet, 2 skeletons just out of nowhere, dead. And so, I improved my relics, yet again. My build felt super smooth. I breezed through everything, and I got to the boss. And even with 30% move speed boots, I died to his transition move because I couldn't collect the things in time, and it is an insta-kill. So, out of frustration, I gave up on Trial of the Sekimas, and I went, and I did a different trial. And oh my god, it was so much easier to do Trial of Chaos, in large part because I could face tank almost everything Trial Master did. I had like 8k ES. He couldn't touch me. It was super easy. And it made me think, what if I'd done this much earlier? What if instead of struggling and trying to fix Trial of the Sekimas, I just gone to Trial of Chaos from the start? Now, having different options and having some builds that excel at one and other builds that excel at the other, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with some builds never doing Trial of the Sekimas, and also some builds never doing Trial of Chaos. But what doesn't feel good is how much harder Trial of the Sekimas feels and how easy Trial of Chaos feels. So it's kind of like, this isn't a choice. This is, you just do Trial of Chaos unless your build can't, in which case sucks to be you. So I'd like to see the difficulty be a little bit more even, or to have more tools available in Trial of the Sekimas to lean into allowing a wider variety of builds to do it. Like, maybe I'm just supposed to be an armor build if I'm in Trial of the Sekimas. but there's something about the trial that should tell me that without me having to spend like 3 hours going to floor 4 and then dying to figure out, oh yeah, I should probably be this kind of build if I'm doing this. With that said, Trial Master Fight's really cool. As someone who played a lot of Path of Exile 1, I love to see him back. That guy's great. The voice actor does not get paid enough for how much he did to that character. And if you're struggling on your 4th Ascendancy, you can't get through the Trial of the Sekimas, I strongly recommend that you check out Trial of Chaos, blast through, take on the Trial Master. In terms of Sekima fixes, I don't want to get into fixes too much in this video. That's not really the point. But one thing that I would do personally is the very first relic that you get from Balbala. It should have honor res on it, and Balbala should say something about how it will make you tankier, so that even someone who's never played PoE before can immediately associate, oh, honor resistance is a stat that exists, and it's really important. I think that would very much smooth people's first experiences with Trial of the Sekimas, maybe making an easier version of a boss from a 4th Ascendancy that feels more in line with Trial Master, and then a uber or difficult version of the boss for people trying to do the endgame farming version and get the best loot. I don't know, just a random idea, probably not a good one. Next up, it is really frustrating that you can't swap runes and can't change resistances. Right now, for example, I have these Havoc Talons, and they're giving me Dex, Fire Res Lightning, 280 ES. I kind of want to upgrade them. And here's the thing. I don't really need any res. I don't necessarily need the Dex. Maybe I'll need it for support gem capacity, but I can work on that. That's not too bad. But then I have this ring, which has mana regen, has max mana, good for my build. It's got Fire, Cold, Lightning. What if I want to upgrade it to something else? Well, I need to make sure that that something else has cold res, because I'm not going to be capped. So either that means I buy a new ring with cold res, or that means I buy a ring that doesn't have cold res and swap my belt. But if I swap my belt, maybe I'm losing a stat that means I have to swap my boots, and maybe I'm getting fire res on my boots. So now I have to swap my chest piece to get lightning res, and before I know it, I've replaced all of my gear just because I wanted to change one ring. In Path of Exile 1, you have the Harvest Bench. This allows you to swap one resistance to the same tier of a different res. Allowing this in Path of Exile 2 would make it so much easier to change around gear, because then, when you're changing your gear, you only have to change one piece rather than all of your pieces. Or you only have to look for one resistance rather than all of the resistances. I know you might be thinking, wait a minute, but aren't runes supposed to be the thing that helps with that? Because runes go in sockets on your gear and they're customizable. Now, because I'm an ES build, because my resistances are fine, right now I'm using ES runes because more ES means more defenses. But I could be using res runes. The problem is, res runes are permanent. Like right now, this has an ES rune in here, but maybe I temporarily needed fire res. Well, I can't put fire res in because it's not temporary. Like, I can't replace this. And if I'd put fire res in, that means those gloves are forever going to have a fire res rune. Maybe I want max mana. I want some more damage. Maybe I want some ES. I want more defenses. I can't change that decision, and it is really frustrating because it takes a system that should be very flexible. The whole point of runes is to customize your gear and makes it incredibly rigid. Now, some of the things that I've been frustrated with, it might just be me. And you know what? If it's just me, that's fine, whatever. But I think this one's something that's resonating with a lot of people. So I'd really like to see GGG address it sooner rather than later. Maybe the whole res swap thing, it's a little bit too much and they don't want to go that far. But it feels really bad when I get a cool drop that could be an upgrade for me, but I know I'm going to replace it soon. Or something that I could sell. But I have to think about, all right, do I socket a rune that I'm going to use right now and fix my gear? Or do I socket a rune that will add the most value to the item? Or do I not socket a rune at all because the item will be more valuable and sell better if it doesn't have a rune socketed? That just feels really bad because it leads to a whole bunch of items that no one really wants and no one really can use. There's plenty of pairs of ES boots that have like lightning res in them as a socketed rune. And I go, yeah, but I don't need lightning res and that could be more ES. So now I'm not going to pay for this pair of boots because it's not worth it. It's not a meaningful upgrade. And why would I pay money for stats that I can't use? So I'd really like to see something done about this, make the system more flexible. Honestly, maybe just let people replace runes freely. Because the other thing is there's soul cores, which are super versions of runes. And again, if you have runes in all your gear and you want to swap to soul cores, now you need entirely new gear instead of upgrading the pieces that you're already wearing and you're already happy with. Then there's the trade site. And as a big enjoyer of trade in both PoE 1 and PoE 2, this one's really rough. So, the trade site has a bunch of filters that you can use to search for items better. For example, in PoE 1, if I was searching for a ring and I didn't really care exactly how much resistance the ring had, I could search here, total elemental resistance, where it would just go, oh, that ring has fire, cold, and lightning, whatever, total it all up. Like, let's just search for a random ring. Here we go. I should probably set it to online only, and I should probably do this. So, I search for rings with really good cold res. And right now, if I don't care about it having specifically cold and fire and lightning, but I just want to know which of all of these rings that have cold res have the most total resistances, I have to do math. And to be honest with you, I hate doing math. Also, because it's not easy and at a glance, you might miss a really good deal. Like this. That is 58% cold, 18% fire, cold, and lightning. And you might just totally miss that because it's a white text thing instead of the red or the blue or the yellow that you're looking out for, the resistance mods. Now, I don't know if this was an intentional choice from GGG, or if this is something that they just completely accidentally happened to happen. But right now, it is really frustrating that I can't do pseudototals. Another thing that is just as, maybe even more frustrating, is when searching for time lost jewels. I recently added Against the Darkness Time Lost Diamond. And I wanted specific stats. I specifically wanted maximum mana. So small passive skills in radius also grant 1% increased maximum mana. Cool enough, right? So all or passive skills. Let's see. Oh, there's increased effect and increased effect. Wait a minute. There's no small passive skills. All right, let's try mana. That's a lot of results. Increased. Maximum. Maybe it's this one, right? Nope. Wrong. So, how do you find it? You scroll down on the page, and ideally you do this to show the most results possible, to scroll the fastest. And then, it gets better because you have to Control F, mana. There's one. But what if I don't want this one? What if I want one with 1% increased max mana and a different stat? Well, now I have to do something to look at page 2, which means putting a price limit of 2 divines, which I guess kind of sort of works for Against the Darkness. It's really awkward and it's not fun. But what if I wanted a Time Lost Sapphire for my build? Well, there's 2,927 for sale. And if I put a minimum price filter of 2, now there's 1,950. I genuinely have no idea how I would search, even if I wanted to, for anything in between. And that is super frustrating. So right now, the trade site feels partially functional at best, and I really hope the filters get improved sometime soon. If GG has a reason to not allow for the same level of filtering that is available in PoE 1, okay. But at the very least, I'd like to be able to search time lost jewels because right now there could be an awesome item for my build that I am simply unable to find. Now last up, low-level uniques. There are a lot of really cool high-level uniques in Path of Exile too, and there are some cool low-level ones. For example, with the Blue Flame Bracers, you convert all of your fire damage to cold damage, enabling totally new playstyles like playing Cold Fireball, something that I've done quite a bit. On the other hand, Ghost Wraith converts 50% of your life to maximum energy shield. This means you get to play a life ES hybrid build, and it has a ton of chaos res, which is a really valuable stat, and honestly, for an item you can put on from level 1, that's really cool. Cloak of Flame, on the other hand, gives you a new vector for dealing with physical damage. Normally, you'd need to mitigate physical damage through armor. But with 40% of your physical damage taken as fire, then your fire resistance mitigates some of the physical damage you take. And in addition to this, it has fire res on it, so it helps in mitigating the damage that's getting shifted over. All of this stuff, really, really cool. And I'd like to see more of these items that feel like they're viable into early maps and potentially even late into the end game. But then you have things like the Hollow Mask, which also provides another way to deal with physical damage. But it's minus 10% to all elemental resistance. So it has negative stats. Not only does it not have res on it, but it makes your existing res worse. Then gives you fizz damage reduction, which, okay, that's good, that's cool. But the rest of the stats are so bad that I can't imagine many people are going to use the item, especially when it only has 66 to max life. Maybe it's good at level 5, but beyond that, I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually detrimental versus not having a helmet on at all. Bramblejack. The melee fizz damage reflected, except it's melee physical damage taken reflected to the attacker. So you have to be tanky enough to survive the melee physical damage you're taking, but not tanky enough to actually mitigate the damage. I don't know. Maybe it's fine, but this one's a low-level meme. But Elevore. This one bugs me because in Path of Exile 1, it's a super useful item. Synergizes with the spell suppression mechanic, which admittedly, not a thing in PoE 2. But it provides a really cool way to recover your life based on suppressing spell damage. And Elevore in PoE 2, first of all, it requires level 33. Second of all, it is probably worse than a random level 33 helmet you're going to pick up off the ground. And third of all, the special effect of charms gain charges per second is bad. It doesn't really do anything. There's very little reason to have your charms constantly gaining charges. And so it's pretty disappointing. Now that said, we're early on in early access. I suspect a lot of unique items are going to get improved over time. And sure, not every unique item needs to be good. Maybe Bramblejack is just a meme, and maybe that's totally okay. But personally, I would rather see more unique items that aren't just usable occasionally if it's a full moon and you're feeling lucky. I'd like to see more uniques that actually feel good to use. Things where you say, hey, that's a cool mechanic, and maybe you pick it up while leveling, use it into early maps, and swap it out later because a best in slot item's better. But it's also probably better than a random piece of junk that you just picked up off the floor instead. With that said, Path of Exile 2, this is early days. And while yes, there have been some things that have frustrated me, there have been some things that felt bad, overall, I've been having a blast with the game. It's really cool to explore the different skills. The synergies between skills are really awesome. Like, as someone who's played PoE 1 for way too long, if you told me, hey, in Path of Exile 2, you will intentionally play a 2-button build and then not try to simplify it down to 1 button by automating stuff, I would have called you crazy. In PoE 1, I always tried to automate everything, and now I really like dropping Frostwall and shooting fireballs through it. It's satisfying, my screen explodes, enemies die, it's great. I love that. Also, the map size has been growing on me. At first, I thought they were way too big, but now I'm like, taking 5 to 7 minutes to clear a map out feels pretty good. It's a medium amount of time. Are a few of them too big? Yeah, absolutely. A few of them maybe a little too windy and twisty? Yeah, definitely. There can be some adjustment to the maps, and I certainly wouldn't be complaining. But overall, I like the size of the map. I like that there's enough that you get a little bit of a feeling of exploration. And you also get a pretty good number of monsters to kill along the way. And so again, I want to reiterate the 3 big points from the start of the video. Number 1, this is just some stuff that's been bugging me. Overall, I really like what GGG did with Path of Exile 2. 2, yeah, I've been talking about stuff, giving feedback, but I was doing this for me. I wasn't doing this because I have any expectation that the developers at GGG are going to or even should listen to my dumb, silly video on the internet. Number 3, this is the worst state Path of Exile 2 is ever going to be in. throughout the early access. And even with a lot of the patches we've seen so far, things have been brought into balance. Things have been improved. There's been so much quality of life, stuff like just teleporting to waypoints in campaign. Absolutely amazing change. The dodge roll changes feel incredible. I don't know. I am really positive for PoE2's future. And so it's a game that I could see myself covering for a very long time. And if you want to know more about the game, check out some of the other videos on my channel, like the build I'm playing or how I got through the Trials of the Secra, maybe even how I made some of my currency. But if you want future PoE2 content, then do be sure to get subscribed and ring that notification bell. Then last up, I'm curious, what are some of the things in Path of Exile 2 that are frustrating you? Feel free to leave them down in the comments below, but keep them polite. Only write something in the comments that you wouldn't be embarrassed if you sent it to your mom by mistake. So with that, I'm going to get going for now. Thanks for watching to the end. I'm glad you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one, which will definitely be a happier video because I got all the rants out of my system now.